please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
So we've been doing these team previews and kind of diving deep, and it's just taking us too long. We're not getting through it. So we decided to do a little differently for the AL West teams. We're going to go through the ADP and the NFBC on these teams, highlight a few interesting players. We just finished talking about Shohei Ohtani. Let's go from the top here. We'll kind of pick and choose some of the guys that are interesting. You really don't need us to tell you where to take Mike Trout. You're going to have a strong opinion. So, okay, he's in the first round. Your choice of whether or not to take him. Anything you want to add about Mike Trout?
Don't take him. That's what I want to add. At his current ADP, I'm just not in. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm the anti. I actually put in a recent Yahoo article to not. I think his ADP at Yahoo's 4 or 5, and I said I'm just not at him. I'm not a Mike Trout in the top like 8 or 9 this year. I want steals or I want a pitcher.
Christian Yelich or Mike Trout?
Trout.
Jose Ramirez.
I'll take Trevor Story over both.
Trevor Story. Okay.
I want my steals.
Okay.
So I'll take Trevor Story over both. So see, I'll take Jose Ramirez over both. So I'm kind of Trout at like pick 12 or something.
Okay.
I totally get the people who wanted to see. So we said we weren't going to say anything about Trout, but I totally get the people who want to take Trout 5th or something or 4th. Like I get it. Best hitter in baseball, most consistent guy. He's not gonna. His floor is really, really high.
Right.
I get it. And if you can have a plan to go Trout and then get your steals elsewhere, then that's totally fine. I don't really want to be the Adalberto Mondesi guy, and I don't want to be chasing steals later on in my draft.
I can appreciate all of that. Yeah. I hear you. So
the
Angels only have 4 guys in the average pick of top 200. It's pretty amazing, and it goes Trout, Rendon. Okay, 2 very fine picks, no questions there. Then you got a closer in Raisel Iglesias, and 1 pitcher, Dylan Bundy. Bundy, where are you on him?
I'm fine with him at his ADP. I haven't drafted him anywhere yet.
Okay.
But I find when he goes, he's usually the top or the second or the third pitcher left on my list. So like I'm fine with him at his ADP. In our LABR draft, I took Framber Valdez. I think Bundy was still on the board. I had Bundy as like the next guy on my next pitcher, at least on my list. So I'm fine with him. Like I hesitate sometimes just a little bit just because last year was such a massive step up, which I was on board for and had him in multiple leagues last year. But and again, the 6-man rotation thing. But I'm not that worried about Bundy. So anyways, I'm fine with him. I'm also fine with Iglesias at his ADP.
Okay, fair enough.
What about you? Are you okay? Would you take Bundy as your I don't know. Would you take him in round 7 or 8? Basically, is the question. He's about round 8.
In a 15-teamer, yeah, I would.
Whether it's SP2 or 3 or whatever.
It'd have to be my 3rd, I think. But I mean, you're going for the strikeouts there when you go for him, and you're kind of counting on him being able to repeat what he did last year. So yeah, I think I am. On board with that.
Yeah. By the way, it's 4 Angels in the top 200, otherwise known as the reason Mike Trout never gets to play in the postseason.
Right. And this is after they've invested in the team, after the Rendon signing, and of course they struck out this offseason. Yeah,
that's right. So there's 4 Angels in the top 200. None of them were on the team even 2 years ago. Like these are the new guys. So he has not had a lot of help.
No, he has not. By the way, I'm back up again in TJFBI.
Let's go.
Let's do this. I think it's Vlad. I think it's team fun.
Okay. I'm not a big Vlad guy this year because of the ground balls, but I get in an overall like the swing for the fences type approach, right? Like it's like go with Vlad. He could really break out. So is Luke Voigt still there?
Although that's the thing, Voigt is still there, and my projection has Voigt as a better player. Better players are fun too.
Then you should take.
I'm gonna go Voigt. Yeah, I am gonna go Voigt. It's always fun to say Vlad and get the year that he breaks out. Any player that the year that is breakout year, you're like, oh, he'll never go that late again. It's fun to have that, but it's more fun to win.
Yeah. That year, I'm quite confident is going to happen. It's just so far we're 0 for 2, where people have invested too much in Vlad. Are we going to be 0 for 3 after this year, or is this going to be the year? I'm not going to go for it. So
Yeah. All right. Well, you were the calm voice of reason here as opposed to the irrational enthusiasm. Luke Voigt, come on down instead. And I guess that means I'm not investing in a top closer because I didn't even really agonize that much over passing on Hendricks. Chapman, by the way, went the pick before me, Hendricks, which I found interesting. I don't see it, but I find it's good team, and he's a long established closer. He's safe.
Yeah, Chapman always finds a way to only throw 55 innings or 50 innings. Like if he throws 65, then Chapman could easily be the top closer. But he just always finds a way to not. When you look at his career, like it just never. It's like it's happened once or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. All right, so that covers TGFBI. Back to the Angels really quickly because there's a couple more guys I wanted to talk about with them. Jared Walsh. Not a lot of buzz on Jared Walsh this year. I'm sure, it's a big, wide industry, and I'm sure someone's written some good stuff on him. I just haven't seen it yet. So tell me about Jared Walsh. What's your take on him?
So I thought Jared Walsh would have more buzz than he does. Like he had 99 homers and 99 at-bats, and almost all those homers came kind of out of the 99 at-bats in like the last the last 90 or so, like the last 80 or so of the at-bats. So like I wonder if some people were really deep into fantasy. In all honesty, when people say this is a thing, like, but we don't acknowledge it, I wonder if some people were really deep into fantasy football by the time his breakouts are. Like he got hot on September 8th, and that's right when football season was starting, and had the 4 games in a row with a homer, then one without a homer, and then 2 more with a homer. And then he cooled off. I'm not in on him. That being said, I think his ADP is quite favorable. So I'm not in on him at pick 200. I think I'd rather just wait on my first baseman if I don't have one by there.
Who are you waiting for instead?
Just like the boring guys, whether it's and remember, I'm in a lot of 15 teams. So like the Carlos Santanas, the Joey Vottos.
So you're really going to wait?
Yeah, like to pick like 300 or something like that.
No CJ Cron for you.
Yeah, Cron, Yuli Gurriel. I'm fine with Cron if he's in that group that I just mentioned. Once Cron's ADP goes up where it's with Walsh's, then I'm kind of out. So I'm kind of fine with waiting. Like Walsh is at pick 200. Walsh is interesting, but let's be honest. Like this guy's had, like I know he had a lot of power in the minors, but as far as the majors go, he basically had one like dynamite week. Like 5 homers, but he had 6 in 7 games.
Yeah.
So even outside of those 7 games, like he had 3 homers. Yeah. So,
but incidentally,
he had one dynamite week.
You haven't given me any grief about my early pick of CJ Cron. Were you aware of this?
No. So what was the pick? Like how high?
Okay, so this is 12-teamer.
Okay.
16th round. I told you I would not go early on CJ Cron, and here I am instead setting them in. I mean, I'm a hypocrite. I lied to your face, your smiling face, because we started doing videos by then.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. It's you probably paid for him to be the Rockies' first baseman this season, but I think that's fine. I think Cron is going to be their first. Josh Fuentes is not a good hitter at all. The more I looked at him after Cron signed the Rockies, like Josh Fuentes shouldn't be anywhere near competing with Cron to be their first baseman. If Cron's healthy, he's their first baseman. He's playing basically every day as long as he can hold up physically. I don't know that he can for sure. He's got way more upside than the guys I named, like Gurriel and Votto and everything. I think Cron's more exciting. Cron in Colorado is more exciting than them. I'd take Cron over Walsh too.
Okay.
So I guess I'm out on Walsh, even though I said I thought he would be even buzzier this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
I think your Cron pick's okay. I also think the risky picks like Cron and Jared Walsh are better in the 12 teams than they are the 15s.
I'd agree with that. I definitely agree with that because the replacement value is so high. I backed him up with Warren Carlos Santana anyhow, and then I even had an upside guy in Dahlbeck in the reserves. So we'll see.
Great, perfect. Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, after pick 300, Griffin Canning. I think there's potential for this to have quite a bit of profit. Obviously, the risk is there, but when you're talking about pick 300, you're going to cut all these guys anyhow more often than not. This is after the 20th round, after the second break in the NFBC main. Most of these guys are streamers, so why not take a chance on upside? I think Canning definitely has that.
Yep, I think Canning's totally a solid pick at that. Like you said, he's boomer bust. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you've drafted a lot of boomer bust already when you hit that round 20, and you already drafted some starters who you like the skills, but you're really not sure if they can go very far, or whatever. Some guys who are small sample size guys, maybe some of the young Marlins or something like that, who are breakout type
Right.
guys, but they're not. But you don't have any like Kyle Hendricksy type guys. Anyways, if you think you can afford some boomer bust, I think Canning's totally fine. If there probably are some, I just off the top of my head, like I think Marcus Stroman's probably gone by then, but there's probably some Marcus Stroman types where they might be maybe more appealing if you just feel like you need, like Brad Keller. I know his ADP was in
Right.
and around
Right around that. Yeah.
Yeah, like depending on the makeup of your staff, like if you're looking at this guy as like your fourth starter or something, maybe it's Brad Keller. If he's more like your fifth or sixth starter, then I think Canning's totally fine.
Joe Adell really struggled last year, hit 161, had a home run go off his glove over the wall for the other team. He's probably going to start the year in the minors. Might spend a good amount of time in the minors.
Yep.
Until 2019, his results were kind of mixed. Well, that's not even fair, but he was mostly really strong in the minors. But at AAA Salt Lake in 2019, they weren't that strong. In the PCL, where it was happy fun ball time. Where are you on him? I mean, he's available really late, 425 in the online, in the NFBC.
He's not even on my list. So, I don't have any AL only leagues this year. I wouldn't get him anyways. But he's not. I'm not even considering him in a 15 team mixed. And obviously, he would be a really bad pick in Toad NL. So he's not on that list either. So yeah, not on my list at all. I'm not I think there's going to be a lot of injuries this year. I think there's going to be like some COVID issues that we're going to have to fight through. I'm not interested in having a prospect on my NFBC bench in April unless I feel quite confident in when the end date on that minor league stint is. Like Jared Kelnick, I'm fine with, because it seems quite likely now that he's going to come up, at some point in April. If Alex Kirilov, if they decided to play service time games and put him in the minors a bit at the start of the year, I could draft him still. Adell, I wouldn't be surprised if Adell's still in the minors in June. Like, I think the plan probably with him is put him in the minors and call him up when they think he's ready.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I just don't want to waste the like we could be looking for a closer, like with that roster spot.
Right.
We could be cycling more Griffin Cannings or something. Like I could just have a boring guy who I just have a boring hitter who I just, like a Cesar Hernandez type, I just have on my bench, when someone gets hurt midweek and I can use them. I don't think Joe Adell's part of the grind that wins leagues this year.
I think he's I think he might be a pickup that could win leagues. If he's crushing it in Salt Lake.
Totally.
Because let's face it, Justin Upton, Dexter Fowler are the two guys in front of him.
Yep.
And he's ready. They're not going to stand in the way.
Nope. And one of them will probably be hurt.
Right.
So, nope, neither, especially Fowler won't stand in the way. Like Upton probably won't stand in the way. At least he's got a big contract. But anyways, I think if Adell's on waivers in my league and I start to think that he's going to come up, then I'm in for sure. Then I'm interested. Yeah. But I'm not drafting him.
And it's so hard to carry a guy like that in the NFBC when you don't know where he can go, and you can't put injured guys on an IL. There's no IL spots. You just have to carry them or cut them. It's really hard to carry a guy in the minors that you don't know when he's coming up. So, he's a tough guy to draft. Any other Angels before?
Yeah. Well, I will mention Jose Quintana. I don't mind him in like the 30th round. Like he was like we were drafting him last year, like at this time last year, like he was getting squarely selected in drafts, like say round 23, 22. And then he basically he was hurt for opening day and he was hurt. He never really got going. So I don't see what's really changed with Quintana except that he's moved back to the AL, but like he's not good anymore. But if you wanted to take him at the end, just as somebody who's going to have a rotation spot, I don't mind him. The other thing I was going to say with Adell is I also got the sense from their initial quotes from the organization about Adell that as far as drafting him now, like I did think briefly like, oh, maybe you could pick him, and then if Dexter Fowler or Justin Upton get hurt in spring training, maybe you get him for opening day. I got the sense from their initial quotes that he's going to the minors because they think that's what's best for him long term, and it wouldn't matter if Upton was hurt, he'd still go to the minors and they'd find someone else.
Yeah, I think that's a right assessment.
Yeah, like they're thinking long term with him and getting him getting him going properly again.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
Moving on, let's go with the division winners last year, the Oakland A's. They are a team that did, they did not add much in the offseason. They've had their top players, Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, are going later than they did last year. Matt Olson had serious draft helium last year, was frequently going in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Sometimes you could get him in the 5th. And he struggled to hit for average. And he's getting dropped down a little bit. ADP now is about 90. Matt, is that a good price for you? Where are you taking Matt Olson?
So far, I haven't. I think that price is fair. So that puts him around in 15, around the 6-7 turn. I think that price is fair. It's the batting average last year that's scaring people off. I still think, and so do a lot of people. This is why he's still getting drafted there. He is on that sleepers list to lead the AL in home runs, like with Franmil Reyes and those players that people talk about who have that kind of power. I think he's fine there. I haven't been getting a first baseman. Like I said, I've often been like either early on a first baseman, someone like Bellinger, or just late, way late. So I think he's fine there. Again, I think it's me trying to look for steals sources and with those first 3 or 4 hitters that I take and getting a steals base, and he's not going to provide that. So I haven't been in on him, but I'm fine with him at that ADP. I find I have him ranked around the other first basemen who go then. Would you draft him around pick 90?
I mean, I'd have to not care at all about batting average, I think. And I might be there if there are scenarios, but I mean, I just think he's got a lot of Joey Gallo potential here. Maybe he's not that bad, but the strikeout rate is really high. I don't know. Maybe it's just you write it off as a 2020 outlier that it was that bad last year, and because you don't want to get caught up in recency bias.
That's right, and he's early enough. So I don't like drafting Gallo ever, but at least this year, by the time you draft Gallo, you can probably already have, say, like 6 or 7 hitters, so you probably have a pretty good idea what your batting average is looking like, and if you can stomach that. Like if you have LeMahieu, if you have Freddie Freeman, maybe if you have a couple, like a catcher who hits for like a Real Muto or someone you think will hit for average, and you're like, okay, I can do that. When you have to pick Olsen, it's probably like your 3rd or 4th hitter. You might not have a great feel yet for where your batting average is going.
Right.
Yeah. Unless like you said, you've already decided you're not going to care about it.
Right. Matt Carpenter, one of the many last year's bums. I doubled up on him with
Chapman.
Yeah, Matt Chapman. Did I say Matt Carpenter? I think I did.
Well, Matt Carpenter's also one of last year's bums. That's for sure. He's like one of a few years bums now.
Yeah, multi-year, and he does play third base too. But in the Beach Jeff Erickson draft last week, I did Chris Bryant and Matt Chapman rounds 9 and 10 back to back.
Okay.
I think what I like is that he's playing already. That he doesn't seem to have restrictions. Looks like the hip problem has been fixed, and if that's the case, I expect a bounce back on him. And I think that was value at where he's going. Pick 115 is where he's going. In that draft, I got him right about ADP. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
I'm fine with him. I don't think I'll end up. It's the kind of thing we've talked about before, where he fits in my rankings right around his ADP, and I won't be at that spot in my rankings at his ADP, so I just won't have him. But I'm kind of fine with him. I like Gio Urshela almost as much, and I can get him later. So I might prefer just waiting and getting Urshela, but I'm fine with Chapman there. It's the same thing as Brian a little bit. Like I'm not going to get as Olsen. I'm not going to get a high average probably out of Chapman.
Yeah, that's also true. Trevor Rosenthal, I mean, his ADP is probably not relevant anymore unless you sort for like the last week. He's now going in the top 10 rounds. He's probably a top 8 or 9 closer. The A's have proven that they kind of like to just give one guy the saves, which is kind of surprising from a Moneyball perspective. But then again, they didn't pay a whole lot for Rosenthal. I think he's going to be the guy. I think he's going to, there's obviously a risk factor there. He's lost control in many other years. Are you paying the sticker price for Trevor Rosenthal?
I'd be fine with it. I think I agree. He's kind of moved to the front end of that closer group that we talked about earlier today, with Yates and Colome and Kimbrel and all those guys who are Nick Anderson, like all those guys who are around rounds like 9, 10, 11. I think he's moved with his strikeout potential. He's kind of moved to the front end. So if you didn't get Hendricks, Hader, Chapman, Diaz, Iglesias, like I think Rosenthal's kind of becoming next on the list. So, and I'm fine with that. If I struck out on those other guys and I wanted to dip into that group and Rosenthal was still there, I would like him as much as anyone.
Yeah, I think he might even be in the next tier up, but we'll see.
Okay.
I just
with Iglesias and that kind of group.
I mean, he's getting drafted there, and 16 drafts in the online championship since February 20th. His ADP is 97.
There you
go.
Yeah. So he's ahead of that tier.
He's going with like Ryan Presley. He's going with Brad Hand. He's going slightly before both of those guys. So you're really gonna have to pay up for him. I don't know if I'm there for that.
Yeah. So you would take Presley. I would take Presley over him. Hand would be. I'd take Hand over him too. Actually,
I think I'd take Hand over both. But because I think there's more job security there for Hand.
Yeah. That's quite possible. I think Rosenthal. Yeah, I think Rosenthal has a fair amount of job security too. Presley, I worried about, but now that when Rosenthal signed, this is all like part of the process of keeping good projections for yourself. Like when Rosenthal signed, one of the things I did after I changed Rosenthal's projections is actually move Presley's up a little bit too, because Rosenthal signing took away that kind of last guy on the free agent market who could have just outright stolen Presley's job.
Yep. That's right.
So
Presley, Iglesias, and Diaz, they all dodged bullets this offseason. Hand signed with the Nats and Rosenthal with the A's. Padres are the one team, and then the Padres though they're the one team that's up in the air. We can probably talk more about them, but that's the one team where I thought they were going to go after Rosenthal. They didn't, but they did sign Melanson, and obviously they still have Pomerantz there. I see Pomerantz go before Melanson almost every draft, even though I think Melanson's going to be the guy that gets the first saves.
Interesting. I feel like it's like a coin flip, so I would take Pomerantz first just because he's the better pitcher. And if Melanson's not getting saves, I need to cut him. So whereas Pomerantz, I can keep him around.
Right. And I'm just trying to double checking. Pomerantz goes about 25 spots ahead of Melanson on average, at least since February 20th. Let's look at the other A's. Who catches your eye when you're looking at A's ADP?
I'd say probably Mark Canha and Elvis Andrus. I'm not really I don't mind Chris Bassett, and probably his ADP is pretty high. Sean Manaea I'm actually fine with. He's when we were talking about Griffin Canning, I know Manaea's ADP is about 50 picks earlier, but I feel like he's kind of the anti Griffin Canning when we were talking about what your team might need. Like, I'm not expecting miracles from Manaea, but I do expect him to take his turns in the rotation. So, but I don't mind Canha as just just a good all around hitter to round out your outfield. I've already picked him up maybe like one league so far. Like he's not like I'm going to have him on every team guy. And Andrus I think is interesting now that now that he's got a full-time role again. It's like everybody was out on Elvis Andrus, and they got traded to the A's, and everyone was like, okay, well maybe I'll take another look. And I think I was one of those people. He's on my bench from the LABR draft, just as maybe cheap steals. And if it doesn't work, like if he's not hitting, I'll cut him. But he could hit high in the lineup too. He
could. He very well could.
Yeah.
I don't want Andrews. I do like Canha. Canha to me, and I have had a couple of one league so far where I've drafted Canha. I think he's just a good ball player.
Yep.
He doesn't have like stolen bases necessarily, but I think he contributes. He's kind of like David Peralta. Maybe a little bit lesser of a batting average version of him, but one of those guys that's always right around the cusp of outfielder 5, reserve outfielder 1, sort of type of guy.
And I think we talked about Aaron Hicks, and I said there's a lot of outfielders I like in that range, like in the 200s. There are a lot of outfielders I like. So it's like I like Canha, but there's a lot of that I like. So I can't take them all. So I will get Canha in. I wouldn't be surprised if I get Canha in like. If I have 6 teams this year, if I get Canha on like 2, maybe 3, he's not at the point in my rankings where I'm just going to have him in all of them, though.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the Astros, unless there's any other A's you wanted to discuss.
Nope, I'm good. I don't think. I think that's about it for me.
All right. So compare the Astros to the Angels.
Yeah.
You want to talk about this is a top-heavy team. They have 10 in the top 150 in ADP. And then another right at 205 in Jose Urquidy, who I think should be in the top 200, compared to 4 versus the Angels. It's a pretty stark difference.
Yeah, and that's why that's why the Astros are that and cheating are why the Astros are continuously, near the top of Major League Baseball. No, even without cheating, you can see why the Astros are have been near the top of Major League Baseball now for several years, and even last year, which wasn't like they weren't great in the regular season last year. They still knocked the Twins out. Like there's still plenty of talent on the Astros. I think you can see why the Astros should still finish ahead of the Angels in the division this year.
I agree. If you would have asked me at the beginning of last season who would be the earliest Astro on average drafted, it wouldn't have been Kyle Tucker.
No, you would have bet the farm. I think that it wouldn't be Kyle Tucker. Although in hindsight, it actually makes sense that Kyle Tucker would either be this year because he's a power speed combo guy, that he was either going to be like near the top or at the absolute bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question here though is, are you willing to take him where he goes? Late second round, early third.
Yeah, I'm fine with him. I think I haven't taken him. So I haven't had that pick yet. Like I haven't had an early pick yet. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to take him, but I've been picking late in like every draft so far. Have you had the opportunity to take him?
No, I haven't. Unless I kind of like, I think I drafted 8th or 9th I drafted 8th in LABR, right? But I guess that there was kind of an opportunity, but Lucas Giolito was sitting there for me at 2.8. I'm not going to take him over. I'm not going to take Tucker over him there. I was one pick away, and he went 3-7 in our draft. Frankly, that was a bit of a bargain. I would have happily plucked up Taylor there, but no, I haven't otherwise. And then in TGFBI, he went in the second round. He went at like 2.9. So no chance there.
Yeah, I get it. I have him ranked competitively with his ADP. I think like he's got that potential to be in the 20s in homers and steals. Maybe he could even push homers up to 30.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's risk there because he hasn't played a ton in the majors, but he's someone with a great prospect pedigree. Like he was expected to be really good. Like we've been waiting for him. I'm fine with him.
Yeah, I am too. And I've got him in a keeper league or two. I do want some more of him, and if I'm drafting early, I would probably end up getting him in a league or two because, especially like say if I go, Soto or Trout early, then Tucker is going to be a guy that I need a little bit of speed from. Although you don't necessarily want to go outfield to start. Although I guess it doesn't really bother me that much to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yordan Alvarez, UT only. He may play first base. He's not going to play the outfield. I think that's pretty clear. I don't like guys coming off of 2 knee surgeries, to be frank. Even if they are 23 years old and raked when they were last hitting in the major leagues. I haven't gotten them yet. I'm only one of those is a league where I'm in it with Dalton Del Don or Chris Liss. It's not just Liss driving that train. There's a lot of people that like Alvarez in the 6th round.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not willing to bake enough playing time into my projection to get him around there. So,
same.
Yeah, like I said, like it's another one of those, like there's people I really respect in the industry who are fine with it. I'm just not one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'll take Nelly Cruz before I take Alvarez.
Yeah.
Even though Alvarez has got the higher ceiling at this point, a lot younger. But it's interesting. You do have to downgrade all these AL DHs now with the lack of NL DH because when they go on those road interleague games, they're not going to play.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So you downgrade them a little bit. But my biggest thing with Alvarez is just worrying that like there's just that the knees are going to be an issue again this year. Even if it's just an IL stint that sidelines him for a few weeks or something, it's enough to make him probably not a good pick there. But again, I already mentioned with Matt Olson, Alvarez is another guy on that list of guys who could lead the American League in home runs if everything broke right.
Give me a Houston Astros hot take that we haven't already said.
I love this pitching staff. So all of them at their ADPs. There's my Houston.
Even
Astros
Framber. See, I think Framber is overpriced.
Interesting. So what don't you like about Framber?
Walk rate. I know he cut it last year, but I don't I'm not betting on that to continue, which means his whip was not commensurate with the price. I just like to see more of it. I think there's a little bit of recency bias in his price.
Yeah, plenty. What I like about Framber, plenty of strikeouts and plenty of ground balls. So I just think there's a nice combo there. But I like them all. I like Greinke at his ADP. Like he's almost like the Nelson Cruz of pitchers, right? Where he always falls, and then whoever gets him is always happy that they got him by the end of the year. I like Ryan Presley at his ADP. We already talked about Jose Urquidy. I like him at his ADP. I like Christian Javier at his ADP. Like I might like this pitching staff more than any other pitching staff in baseball in comparison to their ADPs.
And good ballpark to pitch in. People don't realize that still. Good division. I mean, you don't get strikeouts against the Angels. That's the one thing that you kind of worry about a little bit. But overall, I'm with you on this one here. And I might be a little too hot takey on Framber. I know you got, and in fact, you got a pretty reasonable price on him in LABR. I'm looking up. I'm doing a little quick math. You got him at 106. Hey, new background, brighter.
Yes. So it's actually gotten dark. I was trying to do this discreetly, but now that you called me out on it, it got dark. Like when we started this podcast, it was light. The sun set here in Ontario during the podcast. So I never thought these are things you learn. Now adding the video component. I never thought it was bright in here when we started. I never thought to turn the light on.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I was worried about like if we were going to have to get a ransom note or something with you there, but figure out what was happening. Free Fred from the cellar.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm back. I did try to text my wife briefly during this podcast. Like, can you just come up and just quietly turn that light on? But she must not have her phone on her right now. So was no help to me.
Are you on the Miles Straw bandwagon? Is a cheap steals option maybe a guy that could hit leadoff even for this team?
At pick 397, absolutely. I think that's fine. So like if he's hitting ninth and he's not hitting at start of the year, I really thought Jackie Bradley Jr. continues to linger. He's like the Trevor Rosenthal of center fielders, right? How Rosenthal was just sitting out there being like, don't draft a closer. I might steal his job. Miles Straw is Jackie Bradley Jr. is like the same thing for center fielders. I thought that he would have signed by now. He's going to sign. He's going to take someone's center field job. Miles Straw is one of those people who he could take their job. But at pick 397, I'd give it a shot. Would you consider him?
Yeah, originally I thought that he's going to get the hand just knocked out of it, the bat knocked out of his hand. The hand knocked out of his bat would be a mean trick, but I don't think he's much of a hitter, and that always scares me. But you take prices on guys like that. You take chances on guys like Straw where they fall, as opposed to paying up for the And I hate to just use the punching bag line of Malik Smith again, but there's an abject lesson there. You don't pay 10th round price on the guy that can only run. You pay 25th round price on Victor Reyes or Miles Straw, and you go on your happy way.
Yeah, the thing is, Miles Straw, he needs to be like a bonus where you already have your projected steals, and you're like, hey, I'll take Miles Straw. If he works out, I could win steals. Instead of finishing in the top 3 or 4, I could win steals. Like, he needs to be your bonus. If your plan is, I'm looking really weak in steals, I think I'm going to be in the bottom third. Oh, but I'll get Miles Straw. That'll move me up. Like, that's a pretty risky one. I know the leadoff thing's there, but when I look at this lineup, and you already mentioned how many, top 150 picks there are. By the way, got to say that I left out Lance McCullers when I named all the pitchers I like. I'm actually even fine with him at his ADP. Yeah. But what I was going to say is when you look at the lineup and you've got Tucker and Bregman and Alvarez and Altuve and Michael Brantley, Michael Brantley is such a good hitter, like real life, such a good hitter, more than fantasy. In fantasy he's good, but in real life he's a great hitter. Yuli Gurriel's fine. I know Dusty's an old school manager and Miles Straw can run fast, but I can't imagine that he hits leadoff, bumping all of these guys down a spot. I feel like one of those players I just named has to hit leadoff. Correa, someone has to hit leadoff who just isn't, or Tucker does, but someone who's not fast has to hit leadoff, or Tucker does.
Yep. I think they're right about that. All right, let's move on to the last 2 teams, Seattle and Texas. This is a race to see who is the last team to have a player drafted. Although I think it's not much of a race. I think Texas wins that race. But let's talk Seattle first. Dylan Moore, breakout player last year, second base outfield eligibility. power and speed he provides. He also strikes out a lot. Also has no pedigree. Are you buying him this year?
Nope, not at all. I thought I might have been in on Dylan Moore, and then I saw his ADP. Like, he's someone who in October, November, because I do think about this stuff kind of all year. Like, I was like, oh, I could be in on Dylan Moore. Like, he could get me some steals. I think he can play because this team isn't deep, but like, I could be in on him. And then I saw his ADP, and I was like, oh, forget it. Like, I just to put the Mariners in perspective, their highest ADP guy is not really a prospect. Like, he's already 28. He'll be 29 during the season. Like, he's not a prospect. He has less than 400 career at bats, and he's their highest ranked guy, or highest drafted guy, like, clearly. And yeah, I'm not in on him and his ADP. I do get why people go for him, because they didn't get enough steals early because they were busy taking some of these other guys we mentioned who don't get you any. But I would rather not. What about you?
I would rather not also. I'm being offered him in a trade. Well, I don't have an official offer, but he's like, you need to have Dylan Moore in this trade. It's Ian Connon. Ian's a very persuasive guy, and he might be right. I may need the speed in this league, but I have my reservations about him. He could easily be out of a job by June, and that's the thing that's kind of scary.
That's right. And because he's not a prospect, if he's not hitting, there's no need for them to keep working with him. Like, they're in full rebuild mode. If they can catch lightning in a bottle, and Dylan Moore can be actually he was an 855 OPS. He's not going to be that again, but if he could be a 770 or 790 OPS, and then they've really got something there, and that's great. But he's not a prospect. So if he's a 690, a 710 OPS or something like that in June, like, there's no reason for the Mariners to stick with him. They should just move on and try someone else. And he goes back to being a backup player, and then you really regret taking him. So yeah, right. I'm not in when we're talking like round 8. No way.
Yeah, sorry, I was pointing my daughter to do something there on the door, but yeah, it's
the joys of podcasting. Yeah.
Oh yes. Hey, it's now video, not just audio.
I went in the dark for 15 minutes, and you. Yeah, I had to look over. So it just is what it is. It's fine.
Right. Kyle Lewis is a tale of 2 months. August was hot fire. September was frigid.
Yeah.
Is he somewhere in between, or is one of them more likely than the other?
I'm in the strikes out too much, plays in a crummy lineup. I'm not interested. I'll wait and get those outfielders 100 picks later.
Okay.
So I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of agree.
I don't have a big gap between him and these guys that we've been talking about on this episode, like all these Hickses and guys like that. Like, I don't have a big enough gap where I'd rather just wait 100 picks and get Hicks or Canna or whatever. Like, Lewis is in this spot where, like, you can get really good closers then if you want, if that's what you need, or you can get still hitters who are better or more, like you can get Michael Brantley or someone like that who is a really good overall hitter and is never going to lose his job. So I do understand that the upside on Lewis is big because he's got 17 homers and 277 at bats in his career. So I guess the upside is 30 something home runs, but yeah, I'm not in.
Well, and especially for the opportunity cost, as you alluded. When you lose a 10th round hitter in a 10th round player in a 15 team league, you're not going to replace him that readily.
No.
And that's the thing that's kind of tricky. And a 12er, okay, but that's not your 10th rounder all of a sudden. It's more like your 14th rounder or 12th.
That's right. And I will admit that. Like, I do think mostly through the lens of 15 team leagues. I have thought a little more about 12s because I have that a little more this year, but I mostly think it through that lens. And I will note that sometimes when I write articles for Yahoo, I try to actually put my head in a 10 team space, because there are a lot of people who play a lot of 10. There are a lot of 10 team leagues out there in fantasy. In a 10 team league, sure, I'll take Kyle Lewis. That's okay, because the waiver wire is just full. And if he doesn't get off to a good start, I can just cut him. There'll be so many outfielders on waivers in a 10 team league. So that's fine. But I'm thinking 15 and a little bit of 12. And in that, the acquisition cost is too high.
And the funny thing is, it's an art. Say you're doing a 10-team league. When do you cut a guy? How quickly do you? How itchy is your trigger finger? And and picking up a guy for that matter too. I mean, the problem is if you play baseball's a long game. You need to be patient. You're going to miss out on a lot of the top pickups by waiting it out. I think you just have to accept your error rate is going to be higher. And just say, okay, well, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to cut some guys too soon. I'm going to pick up this flash in the pan, and it's always going to be as a flash in the pan. It's not going to be enduring. That happens. It happens all the time. You're going to get Chris Shelton's out there, and poor Chris Shelton. He was more than 1 month. He was a couple of months, but anyways, it's definitely one of those risks you come to the table with here. All right, we're going a little. Let's try to go a little quicker here. Sure. We've talked a lot about Jared Kelnick. He's going earlier and earlier and earlier. He's going to be 15th round by the time we get to main event time, if not sooner. In my opinion, he is, unless there's just a setback this spring.
I think he'll be 12th round, maybe even 11th by main event. I think by main event he'll be like 11th or 12th round, and I think it's justifiable if you think he's going to be down for 2 weeks only, 3 weeks only, and you think he'll hit the ground running in the majors, then it's fine. I don't know if I'll be taking him in round 12. But I respect that, like it in a main event, in an overall, it makes some sense. Again, it's a swing for the fences type pick that has some power and speed attached to it.
Of the Mariners starting pitchers, for the price that they're going at, who are you most interested in?
None of them. But if I have to take one, I guess I'll take Justice Sheffield around pick 300. I don't mind Marco Gonzalez at pick 170. It's even though it didn't come in the best setting, it's almost humorous that the former president of the team referred to him as boring, because in fantasy he is boring. But like as your number 3, maybe 4 starter, like boring is okay. Yeah. And I don't mind him at his ADP. Yeah, but I'd say probably because of the 6-man rotation, I've kind of cooled on him a bit. So now I'm maybe just someone late like Sheffield or Kikuchi, but I'm going to take Sheffield over Kikuchi. What about you?
I like Gonzalez for the price. I took him in labor. I like Kikuchi a lot. You're right about the 6-man rotation. That's a problem. Do you think they stick with that?
Yes, because I think that Gonzalez is the only guy that it doesn't really fit. So, and he's not that important, I think, to change it. So could they stick with the 6-man, but once in a while tweak it a bit so he starts a little more often because he can? I could see that happening where it's a 6-man, but sometimes they just skip the 6th spot completely. But the rest of the rotation, I believe, is kind of just about developing guys. So there's really no reason to go away from it. They also seem pretty married to it. So, and they don't care about winning. Like, in all honesty, this year, like I think they're just trying to develop.
They did kind of make that abundantly clear, didn't they?
Yeah. So
that's true.
So I think, so that's what's cooled me a little bit on Gonzalez. I also find the point where Gonzalez goes, I'm not often taking starters. I often have my starters. Yeah. And then in that point, I'm taking hitters and closers. I'm not against him. That's for sure.
Okay. Yeah. The Texas Rangers, this should be a team that we were talking about stacking earlier. Yeah, like, I really can't wait to get a bunch of Rangers hitters. That's no longer the case. 167 is what Joey Gallo's ADP was in February. 162, was his ADP in February. And he's the earliest Ranger to go.
Yeah. This is the type. Now, if you wanted to get creative with your stacking in an overall contest, this is the type of lineup, if you believed in it, that you could stack cheap. And you could draft the actual, like when I was talking about Acuna and Albies, that's like really exciting. But you could draft your team as you want up until you get into the double-digit rounds, and then you could try to pluck 4 or 5 of these hitters. And if you believed in this lineup, you could try to do that. And if you were right that this could be, say, a better, all it would need to be for you to win on that is for it to be a better than average lineup.
See, if you did that, I think you'd be the cowboy rogue drafter. Handing over that money to the rest of the league. I mean, I do have some Leody Taveras already on my teams. I like the cost of drafting him. I like the stolen base upside. The fact that he's batting leadoff to start the spring training is, that's not terrible. Will he stay there? I don't know. He's doesn't come without risk though. He's definitely not a great hitter, at least not for average, at least not yet.
No, he's very risky, but very risky. He was more of a fantasy success than a real baseball success, right? In that initial tour, I think his OPS was just around 700. So, I just pulled him up. It was 703. Like he hit 227. Like he wasn't really a real baseball success in those 33 games, but he was a fantasy success because he got 4 homers and 8 steals. So now you start multiplying that out, and you're like, oh, really? Maybe I can get like a 15 homer, 30 steal guy here, right? Over a full season. So we need him to be successful. You want him to stay in that leadoff spot, which means he needs to get on base better than the 308 last year. It's a small sample. I'm not getting carried away with it. He needs to get that OBP up to, even in a rebuilding lineup, maybe to 325 or 330, keep the leadoff spot. Because we know if he loses the leadoff spot, the place he's going is like 8th or 9th.
As opposed to their state mates, the Texas Rangers pitching staff, not pretty, Fred. Not pretty at all. Only 3 pitchers listed in the top 500 picks, according to February ADP here. Jose Leclerc, Dane Dunning, and Jonathan Hernandez, 2 of which are going to, cancel each other out. Maybe one gets the closing job, the other loses it. Only 1 starting pitcher. Do you like any of those 3 pitchers, first of all?
Nope, not at all. I'm fine with Hernandez, I guess, in the last round. If you want to take Hernandez right now in the last round and just hope that he gets into the save situation, I think that's fine. I'm not interested in Leclerc at all. I just don't believe in him. I don't know if you do, but I don't. And Dunning I got nothing against him, but there's guys I like more. We talked about Griffin Canning. We talked about Brad Keller. Like, they're all in and around the same pick 300 as Dunning, and I like them more.
Gotcha. Nate Lowe maybe gets freed, goes to Texas.
Yeah.
Are you interested?
A little, but I bet I won't have any Nate Lowe this year. And they're all kind of, so we got Nate Lowe. This is where I was saying, if you wanted to get gutsy, you could get Nate Lowe, David Dahl, and Willie Calhoun on your bench. Maybe you get someone like a Nick Solak at his ADP or Tavares, and now all of a sudden you have tons of Rangers, and maybe if you're right and the lineup breaks out, it was a really cheap way to stack a lineup. The problem with that plan, the more I thought about it here, is you want more versatility than that on your bench. Like, now the weeks that the Rangers only have 5 games, you're kind of screwed, where you have to play a bunch of them.
Right.
You just don't have room. You can't have room to carry all of them.
That's the thing against stacking for any team.
Well, you want to stack hitters then, it means that if you want to stack hit players that are so good that you're going to leave them in your lineup, even the weeks where the matchups aren't good. Like, you're not taking Ozzy Albies if he's performing up to your expectations, in Acuna and Swanson, like, they're staying in your lineup. So stacking at the bottom probably doesn't make sense, because you want a versatile bench where you just get a good schedule mix every week.
I'd agree with that.
You could grab one of these guys. How about this, Jeff? Who do you like? Dahl, Lowe, Calhoun. Who do you like?
Calhoun, I think, but the lack of position hurts.
Yeah, I think Calhoun maybe too. I think no matter what league you're in, I think he'll get outfield eligibility quickly if he doesn't have it at the start of the year. I'm starting to lose.
And what I mean by lack of position too, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't like that he's such a bad defender.
Yes. And now that they have Chris Davis, that there's not an easy path to him just being a DH if he's a bad defender.
Right.
So, yeah. Oh, I will bring up Sam Huff. You drafted him.
Yeah.
In our LABR draft. Was that just like...
He's got power.
I was going to say, was that before we drafted, you were like, hey, I might wait and take Sam Huff in the last 5 rounds? Or was it like, oh, we're in the last 5 rounds, I got to take one of these crummy catchers. I'll grab Sam Huff. He's more interesting than the other guys.
It was, I've got an early catcher. I'm going to wait to the very end and get my second. And we'll see what's there.
So it wasn't like Sam Huff was the target, but he was a guy who maybe among maybe 2 or 3 other guys you had on your radar.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I'm not excited about him. And by the way, Willie Calhoun does have some. He has 8 games in the outfield. So in most leagues, he has eligibility, except for LABR. LABR, he does not, because it's 10 in LABR. Right.
But so if the one benefit of Chris Davis is he'll push Calhoun to be an outfielder more often than maybe Chris Davis will. So he'll get that outfield eligibility even maybe at the end of the first week. If not, he should get it early in the second week. So.
And my thing with late catchers is I want them to do one thing. Okay, maybe maybe he gets you 5 stolen bases. Maybe he's a no power average guy. Maybe he's, Sam Huff, who's got a lot of power but has a big injury risk and perhaps even a playing time risk. But he does something. I don't want a guy like, well, he's there. He's going to get a lot of playing time at least. I'll take Jacob Stallings. It's like,
yes.
And
Tucker Barnhart from your beloved Reds, right? So yeah, I agree with you. If you're going to draft a catcher in the last 5 rounds as your starter, don't draft Jacob Stallings. Don't draft Tucker Barnhart. Draft Sam Huff. You can just pick Tucker Barnhart up.
Yep.
In 3 weeks into the season if you have to.
Yeah. And by the
Or
way,
some
Sam
pitcher
Huff
would be
has had a grade 2 hamstring strain, so I've got a magic touch with my catchers in labor already. I'm off to a flying start.
Yeah, between him and Real Muto, you might be picking up 2 catchers on opening.
I'm going to say I'm not going to pick up 2 catchers, but we'll see.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
So I think you'll have Real Muto for opening day. I think you'll have Huff too, but I think you'll have Real Muto for opening day, which is what really matters.
It is what matters, and the friends we made along the way. That always matters
right.
too. Sorry, had tip Yancey Eaton for the joke. Anything else you want to add with the Rangers or the Mariners? Kind of flew through those last 2 teams.
No, I think Ty France on the Mariners is interesting at the end. I probably won't have any shares, but I think Ty France is interesting, like just as a late round possible power source. I think Nick Solak is fine at his ADP. Playing time is open. He's a bit of a wild card. Like, he's an interesting skill set.
Mm-hmm.
His ADP is a little higher than I thought it would be. I thought you'd be able to get him in the 200s, but you can't. But multi-position, interesting skill mix. I think he's fine as an ADP too.
Yeah, he actually bothered to qualify in a couple places. He was a UT at draft time last year, and you're like,
right.
Okay, great. He's got the skill set, but where does he play? Now you're like, oh, great, he's eligible. But what happened to the skill set? It tailed off a little bit last year.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. No more live picks, but we are kind of moving now on the TGFBI. We're up to 15.9. Flying irrational exuberance here. But anyways, thanks for everybody listening. Thanks to Otternew for sponsoring. Got Clay and James tomorrow with the Prospect Podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and have yourself a great day.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.